Hey everyone, it's Natalie, and I just wanted to jump on and offer my amazing audience a quick apology. I'm not sure what happened with my mic in between me doing my own sound check and actually recording with Leah, but there is definitely something going on with the audio that was recorded that day. Now, the conversation that Leah and I had about divorce was an amazing one and one that I think that was very important. So, I tried to fix up the audio as best as I could, and I decided to allow myself some grace and lean on your support and patience with the fact that I am self taught when it comes to our audio editing. I hope you enjoyed this week's episode, and I thank you once again for your patience with this week's audio. Bye, everybody. Hey, tolerators. This is To All the Men I've Tolerated Before with Natalie Katona, your weekly look at everyday misogyny. Today's guest is Leah Marie Mazur, and I just realized I didn't ask you how to confirm that that's how you say Mazur. So go ahead and correct me if I'm wrong.
So everyone says it like that. It's pronounced Mazur, but it's okay because you're not the only one.
I swear I had a neighbor who had a last name the way that I was pronouncing it, so I just went in confidently. Leah is a certified divorce recovery coach for women and founder of Mindfully Ready. She specializes in helping women release guilt, shame, and feelings of failure so they can find acceptance, rebuild their self confidence, and thrive after divorce. And that's what we will be talking about today. Welcome, Leah.
Thank you. I'm so stoked for this conversation.
I am so stoked too because when we talked in our preliminary chat, I told you that divorce is just something that I tiptoe around because I have no experience in divorce except for my parents' volatile divorce.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
just an adult childhood or adult child of divorce, I believe is what that Adam Scott movie was called that I should watch. But go ahead and give us a little bit of a background about how Mindfully Ready came to be.
Yeah. So I'll take you back a little ways. When I was 16 years old, I witnessed my mom have an asthma attack in our apartment and die. And as you can imagine, that was super traumatic for me. And then 5 years later, my dad died. He got pancreatic cancer, and 6 months later, boom, he was gone. So by 21, it was just me. I'm an only child. And so I was just like, okay, I guess I got to just figure everything out on my own now. And I learned everything the hard way. And so I didn't realize this at the time, but my coping mechanism for that, those abandonment issues from losing my parents became essentially just becoming a serial monogamist. I just hopped from one relationship to the next for years because the relationships were like the buoys that were keeping me afloat. If I wasn't in a relationship, I just felt like I was just so deeply alone, right? Like just floating on this planet by myself. And so that is how I kind of formed my own stability. And so after my second divorce, I was like, okay, obviously there's some kind of pattern I'm stuck in here. There's something going on that is not working for me. I need to assess, right? Assess the situation and figure out what's going on so that I can make better choices and not keep finding myself in this situation. So that's when I just dove into all the things self help, therapy, meditation, journaling, gratitude practice, like everything, books, podcasts, to understand what was going on. And that's when I realized it was those abandonment issues and that fear of being alone. And it was causing me to settle in relationships. And so there I was. So after my journey, I essentially just took all of the best tools and the most effective methods that got me to a great place where I felt confident and I loved myself and I forgave myself for my mistakes and just created a framework for other women because there's thousands of women that come out of divorce with so much guilt and shame and feelings of failure, and it's just unnecessary, right? I mean, a divorce is a very common thing. Unfortunately, it's very common. I'm sure we're going to dive into that more. And so I that's how Mindfully Ready was born.
Oh my goodness. And to think about because I'm thinking about when, you're 16, that's when like people start talking to you about like what adulthood looks like. Like, where are you going to study in college? And what do you think marriage looks like? Or it's when you're just forming all of these assumptions about marriage because you're on like the brink of adulthood. And gosh, to be so strong to come up with something like mindfully ready out of like huge loss and different types of loss, that's really commendable.
Thank you. Thank
You're
you.
welcome. So let's go back to before the first marriage, like in prep of the first marriage. What were some of the things that when you reflected back on either that first marriage or your second marriage, you were kind of conditioned to believe that, like, oh, that's just how it is. And that is what I have to put up with in order to be in a relationship.
Yeah. So my first husband was a really good guy. It was not a toxic relationship. But my role in that relationship was he was always it was a platonic relationship for me. We were friends first. We met when I was 19, when I was coming out of a toxic relationship. So for me, he was on the complete opposite end of the spectrum, treated me well. I could trust him. So I convinced myself that it was shallow of me, that I wasn't physically attracted to him. I told myself that it was what was inside that mattered, like looks fade, like all of those conversations to basically convince myself that how I was feeling was wrong and that he's a good guy. What else can you ask for? Kind of thing. So obviously there was a lot missing in that relationship. It wasn't even just the intimacy or the physical attraction, but I didn't know who I was when we started that relationship. I didn't know what I wanted. I had no self esteem. I mean, I really was like, well, he's a good guy and he loves me. Like, what else could I ask for? That's really literally where I was. Um, so then, my aha moment for that first marriage, this is a few years in. I was sitting on the couch. I was a stay at home mom with our daughter, and I was watching TV, and an eHarmony commercial came on. You know eHarmony? I think they still, and I was like, "Man, I wish I could do that. I wish I could for eHarmony and, like, find my person." And I was like, "Shit, this is probably, like, a big sign for me that this is just not where I wanna be, and this is not gonna change or get any better, and I need to figure out, like, what I'm gonna do from here."
Yeah, as someone who took the eHarmony quiz when it was like free for a weekend, it's like a 300 question ordeal.
Wow.
And some of them require writing about yourself. And I'm like, or those like awful rankings, like I agree this much with something or whatever. Like, you really have to know yourself before you sign up for eHarmony. So to be sitting there and being like, that is exactly what I want to be doing. When I remember the like beginnings of eHarmony and Match.com, I remember it being like everyone's last ditch effort. Like, well, I guess I'll do this now.
Yeah. Like, I've tried the free ones, and that's not working for me, so maybe I can sign up and do a membership for one of these ones instead.
Yeah, or you think that people are going to be more serious about it if they're
Yeah.
paying for it, and then you quickly like find out that all of the people who are paying for it are also on all of the free platforms. I think the idea around attraction and how you were just like, I don't know, I guess I shouldn't be shallow, or I guess I shouldn't be wanting more. That was a huge like belief that was passed down to me
Mm,
because I think in the back of my mind, the older women in my life link being in a relationship to female survival because of how our
yeah.
society is set up. So whenever I would be like, I don't know, I'm just like not feeling it. He was like charming for a week, and now everything that I thought was charming is like either a lie or not that charming. And they'd be like, I don't know. He takes you to dinner once a week. Like I don't know what you're looking for, but I just feel like you should like I say I'm like I was editing an episode earlier today and I called it like the you get what you get mindset where it's like what did you want to begin with? Like is this not enough for you? And then I'm sitting here on all of these dating apps and I was like these men literally put a laundry list of all of their non-negotiables and it's like you must be fit and you must have a job and you must never need me for money and all of the things. And I'm sitting over here just being like, I guess whoever swipes right on me will be my soulmate or I will just be alone forever.
Yeah. Well, so, about that mindset, if you think about it, it was only a few generations ago where women had to get married. We couldn't vote. We couldn't get jobs. We couldn't get credit cards. We couldn't get loans. We couldn't buy land. Like, we couldn't do anything without a husband. We needed one. And so, even if you look back at like the commercials, and the ads and magazines and papers back then, it was all about how to be digestible for men, how to attract men, how to look how men want you to look. That is just not the case now. We are just more independent. We can have higher standards. We can have stronger deal breakers. We can be super picky, and you should be super picky, because otherwise you're at all of those problems that you're like, nah, maybe this isn't so bad. That is the shit that's going to wind up getting you guys divorced. Like any red flags that you're ignoring, any boundaries you're not setting in the beginning, any things you're kind of not like feeling good about, those things are going to survive throughout that relationship and continue to come up and cause problems.
Well, and you were 19 years old. And I just remember it wasn't until I was 25 and like completely out of my parents' house and in a completely different state where I even felt like I had the right to figure out who I was. Because in high school, it's like I'm getting straight A's or I'm not. And I either feel great or bad about that because it's not that I want straight A's, it's because that's what was expected of me. Or like I was told to get a hobby, so I picked up speech and debate because someone wanted me out of the house. Or someone told me it would be great if I was a creative writing superstar. You just get told all of these things about yourself, and then you're like, sure, I love speech and debate, and I will do that because no one has told me I'm good enough for drama club.
Yeah. Well, speech and debate. I'm sure that ties into how well you do on your podcast, though. but but yeah, I mean that's the thing, and that's why like coaches like that is part of the reason why we exist and why we help people like that is because you get caught up in your own beliefs and you don't even realize it. Like you don't even realize that how you identify with yourself or how you show up in the world is just because somebody told you that's what you were supposed to do, and you never like challenged that. You never challenge that thought or belief. So when you can talk to somebody that can just kind of be more objective about it and show you and go, well, do you realize that this is kind of what you're saying? And that's just one way to look at it. Like there are other options, so many people are like, oh my God, like I never thought of it like that. I never even thought to, see it that way.
Well, and then you throw yourself into a marriage, and then there's a person every day who's going to wake up and be like, "You're pretty secure in yourself, right?" And you're like, "No, I'm not." And I feel like I told the person that you fell in love with and decided to marry is a phantom or a lie or something. And then I'm now grappling with how you might feel about that. And I feel like I don't want to call it a trap. I often refer to marriage as a trap, but what one of the pitfalls and traps of getting married before you do all of that inner work is how are you having a genuine relationship that is now also tied to money and land and careers and all of that. If you yourself aren't showing up to that relationship knowing who you are, it just like becomes some weird part of the dishonesty spectrum for me.
Yeah, it can. Yeah, because if you don't know who you are or what you need, then how do you know you're choosing the right partner for you anyway, right? Like you have to get yourself to a place where you feel like you don't need a relationship. That's the best place to be in to find a relationship, because you can have those high standards and those strong deal breakers, but you're dating without being attached to any outcome. Like it's literally like, I'm good. So if this doesn't work out, fine. Like, thank you, next. I can fulfill my own needs. I can do everything that I need for myself. I can pay my own bills. I can stand on my own 2 feet. I don't need you. But if we work out and like this is nice and you're just kind of like the icing on the cake, great. Like you can make my life easier, you can make my life better by adding value to it.
Yeah, and I think one of the misconceptions that we get tripped up on when it comes to marriage and divorce and all of it is if it's not forever, it's a failure. Like you did something wrong.
Yes. You know, not I mean, nobody gets married thinking that they're gonna get divorced, obviously, right? Um, but also, no one just wakes up one day and decides to get divorced for no reason. Like, there's always really good reasons. And on average, it takes someone 2 years of contemplating divorce before they even pull the trigger or like go meet an attorney. That's a long time to be thinking about that. But some relationships are just not meant to last forever. And that's okay. I mean, I think this is the problem we get into with like the stigma of divorce. And like one of the things I talk about, I really feel like marriages should be like leases,
Mhm.
right? Like, because it's like you should be able to reassess periodically. Is this still working for us? Are we still happy? Are we still making a good team? And if not, let's part ways. That's okay. I mean, you have to live your life for you. You're the one stuck in that relationship. You're the one stuck in those groundhog days where you're having the same arguments over and over and you're not finding any common ground. And if you're in a relationship that you feel like just is not a good team for you, it's okay to leave.
Yeah. And when people are like, "Oh, that's so callous to not believe in the forever of it all," I like to remind people, not that like I know the exact facts on this, but I'm like, when marriage was an institution, people were like living like when marriage was created as an institution, people were living to like 27.
Yes.
Now we're living till 90. That's like 70 more years that I have to look at someone.
Yeah. And think about how often you change. Like, man, I could tell you honestly, Nat, if I look at myself like who I was 12 months ago, it's not even the same person. I'm always evolving. Always. And so it's not realistic to think that you can stay with the same person, if your high school sweetheart, you marry them and then you're just going to be on the same page for the next 70 years of your life or whatever. Sometimes people just grow apart and then sometimes they don't. Sometimes you find a good partner, not even to say a good or bad partner, but a partner that just grows with you. Like, it's about letting them be them and on their evolution, letting you be you and on your evolution, and you just continue down that journey together and continue to support each other, right? It's like you don't that's also where it comes into like you're always responsible for your own happiness. You're always responsible for fulfilling yourself. It's not your partner's job to make you happy. And so sometimes you just find a partner that you can stay on that journey with.
And I think where we when we have this idea of forever and you get what you get and you're just going to maintain and you're going to bear down, that is where I see the majority of the resentment in people's relationships, because it's like it's really hard to be unhappy with yourself and then to be living with someone who is either reflecting back to you all of the things that you're unhappy about yourself, whether it be you have to work outside of that home and your spouse gets to work from home every day and they have the nerve to tell you that they're tired too, or you work outside of the home and your spouse is taking care of the kids all day and they have the nerve to tell you, or vice versa. Your spouse is out of the house all day and not looking at these damn kids, and they have the nerve to tell you how stressed they are. It all breeds from that. I find it. I was watching that show, Fleischman is in Trouble, over the weekend. I got influenced into watching it. And the whole thing pissed me off because I was like, it just feels like a losing battle. It feels like as soon as a wife is unhappy in her set of circumstances that's also affecting her husband's happiness, then he likes to throw in that she's making the kids miserable. And it's like, I would like a world where I get to fully be unhappy if that's what's happening to me in the moment.
Yeah, yeah. And I think again, a lot of that comes just from self-awareness and having a partner who's also self-aware. Like being able to have conversations like that where you can go to your partner and go, "Here's how I'm feeling. I'm not quite sure how to get to the root of this or like where this is coming from." And then your partner can go, "Okay, well, like let's talk about it. Let's help you find a solution or find some other way that we can adjust things so that you feel differently. Like that's what makes it a good team, right?
Yeah. And I mean, as a single woman who just observes a lot of marriages, I have often said in my head, that doesn't seem like that's ever going to be a win situation for me. And I love living in my house by myself and I love being the like captain of my own destiny.
Yeah.
And the amount of allowances that I see people go through during their marriage where I'm like, I go, that's one that I wouldn't have. Like, I can't imagine myself like falling back on that or like compromising. Or during the pandemic, when a lot of us woke up and we heard our spouses say racist or homophobic things because a man with the orange toupee told us that it was okay to be racist and homophobic. And you were like, no, what?
Yeah. There was a lot of divorces during that pandemic too, let me just tell you.
Yeah.
It went up. It went up.
Because you're locked in your house and then all of a sudden someone gets real comfortable and they're like, why do we have gay marriage? And you're like, excuse me?
Yeah, yeah. Well, because think about it. If a lot of people who are getting married are doing it in their 20s, right?
Hmm.
Because that's what we are told by society. You graduate, you go to college, you get a job, you get married. Like that's the bop, 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 bop. That's what you're supposed to do with your life. So a lot of people are in their 20s getting married. What do you really know about anything in your 20s? What do you know about you? What do you know about relationships? What do you know about life? Like, what questions are you really asking those potential partners? Are you asking about their love language, their parenting style, their credit score? Like, religious stuff, political stuff? Are you asking those kinds of things? No, no, you're not. You're just like, well, I'm in love, or we've been together for this many years. And so this is the next natural step.
Yeah. I like to argue against the idea of what I have deemed the rom com definition of love, where it was like you were just at a bar and someone felt all of the chemicals in their head rush to their bathing suit parts. And then you decided that that was what you could build a life on. And everyone called it fate and destiny and souls touching and all of it. And I'm like, as someone who has chemical imbalances that are monitored by a doctor and regulated through pills, I have come to realize how important it is to reflect upon your chemical reactions to things.
Yes, because that's that thing, like, when you say, "Oh, I felt butterflies," and, like, things like that, that's actually a sign that it's not good, that it's unsafe. Did you ever hear that before?
Yeah.
Like, when you have yeah, that's actually not good when you're feeling those butterflies, and yeah, I mean, and that's why you should always take your time too. Like, so many people rush into relationships because they get so caught up in that like drug. Like, your brain feels like it just like snorted a pile of cocaine or something, because that's those love chemicals pumping through your body, and it's not real. That's not like a sustainable, right? So it's like you're feeling all these crazy things in the beginning, and then as time goes on, that stuff subsides, and then you're left with this real person who has like real flaws and things that you might not agree with, and then you're like, oh shit, like now why is this so different? Why did this change?
And I think that one of the ways that we demonize the idea that marriage isn't forever and can actually end when it no longer serves us is we really like to judge people who refuse to use dating as a platform to marriage, where it's like, no, I'm just dating because I like mini golf and I would like to do mini golf with another person. Or I would like to see if this person who's in my book club also has other things in common with me. Everyone is like, no, you date one person for months and you just audition them every day if you want them to move into your house. And if you don't, then you have to take months off to heal from that. And then you date one more person.
Yeah. And so that's what's so this goes back to how you were told those certain things, right? Like, your family kind of gave you those beliefs. Like, that's one thing that's so important to remember, is when people are telling you things like that, that's just their belief. Like, are they questioning where that came from? Where did that come from? Right? That they think that way. where did that start, right? Because there's obviously so many different ways to live your life. There's so many different ways to approach relationships, and you can do whatever you want to do. There aren't actually rules. That's the thing. People love to try to put you in a box or to tell you what you're doing is wrong, but that's just their opinion. That is just their belief that they were probably taught when they were growing up.
And what do you see the guilt and the shame that your clients experience? How does that manifest within their life? Like, what does that look like that they might not even attach to the blame and the guilt and the shame that they're feeling?
Low self-esteem, low self-confidence, just not feeling good about who they are. And all of that comes down to that inner dialogue. Like that inner critic is just running amok. And it really comes down to having to be mindful about the conversations you're having with yourself about yourself.
And not even with dating or the idea of marriage, but so often it's like, why am I at this party? Because I was so worried that all of my aunts would get together and call me like a hateful little demon because I didn't make it to this wedding or whatever. So now I'm here and I'm sick or I'm just burnt out or any of it. And it's that running dialogue that we keep, like everyone's keeping score on us when everyone's just too busy worrying that other people are keeping score.
Yeah. Yeah, so true. And some of that might even be like people pleasing tendencies. Like we feel guilty for saying no or for like setting a boundary or for just being honest with ourselves. That's the thing. Like if it's hard to just say, "You know what? This is how I feel. I don't want to go, and that's okay, regardless of what other people's opinions will be about this."
Yeah. A big step that I took this year was I woke up and I couldn't tell if my allergies had finally manifested into being sick. It was November, or if I just needed to like shower, steam out my head, and my throat would go back down to its normal size and my head would stop pounding. And it was Thanksgiving. And I'm like, well, I was 6 hour drive to get to my aunt's house for Thanksgiving. And I might get into hour two of this drive and all of the meds might like hit my bloodstream and I can be fine to go to Thanksgiving. Or I could be on hour two of a 6 hour drive and still be feeling miserable. And then just like showing up to my family Thanksgiving and getting all of those kids sick for Christmas or any of it. And and I finally just texted my aunt and I was like, I'm sorry, but I really don't think that I should come. And there's so much deprogramming with what we have to do with about the holidays anyways and how like important it is to be there and do it in a certain way. But I was like really proud of myself because I was like, even if I do feel better by this afternoon and I'm like, oh, that's silly. I skipped Thanksgiving. At least I'm not throwing up on the road or in someone's house or just like asleep while everyone else is eating turkey.
Yeah. Yeah. And so that was so good. So did you not go?
I didn't go. No.
Good for you. That good for you.
And I didn't tell the one parent that I thought would like try and convince me to go. Because I was like, no, like they'll just be sad and they'll be sad and they're not even going to be there at Thanksgiving, but they'll be like, you made a commitment to your aunts and uncles that you would be there and no one wants to spend Thanksgiving by themselves. And I think what we figured out during the pandemic is that Christmas, Thanksgiving, and all of them are just another day. You
Yeah,
can do anything on those days.
that's right. That's right.
What are some things about the process of coming to terms with getting a divorce or the process of divorce in general that lead directly to we still live in a society where misogyny and the patriarchy are always just kind of simmering under the surface?
I actually had duetted a video on TikTok about something like this today, where there's like three types of men as partners or fathers, and the first one was the man who essentially believes that it's the woman's job to do all of like the house chores and take care of the children, right? So if he's working, it's your job to just do the rest essentially. Then the second one was the man who believes, well, I'll help you with this stuff, but then you have to give me something that benefits me personally, like in return. Like, I'll do this, but then you have to do this kind of thing. And then there's the third type of partner who views it more as like a team. Like, we're in this together. I'll help you. This isn't like a, it's like this is all our responsibility. We'll all do it together. And I can't, I mean, it happens so often where now generally men are not taught how to process or communicate their emotions, right? Generally. I think we're getting better as the times go on, but so that means that women are shouldering the emotional burden not only for themselves but for an entire family sometimes, and that'll take a toll on you. That you get to a point where you're like, I just can't do this anymore. And so I think that's some of the stuff that comes to mind when I think about kind of the male role in some of this.
Well, and I saw that TikTok. I saw it because doesn't it start with like one of those guys and he's so irate and he's so confused. I love when men are irate and confused because we don't think they're great. And he's like, I can't believe that not only are all of these women divorcing us, but then they have the nerve to divorce us and they go through a glow up. All of a sudden they're hot and they're skinny and they're have makeup and they're going to yoga and they're dressing better and they're going out with their friends or whatever. And why couldn't they have all just done that when they were married to us? And then like all and the person who stitched that came up with the three different kind of male spouses. And then people were like, bruh, it's you. You're the reason why she couldn't do any of those things.
Right. Or had no incentive to do it, had no motivation to do that.
Right. Or or in the middle of her days, she finally felt like she could take a breath and you came home and you needed tending to. Like, I have friends who basically have spouses that are in their lives. And when they do have like a moment at home or a moment where it can be family time, it's like, well, now I'm just the ringleader and the carnival cruise director for his good time. It's not like, babe, do we have to do laundry? Babe, what do we need to catch on today? It's like, are we going to the movie? What do the kids want to do that's also going to be fun for me?
Yeah. Totally. Totally.
I often say that my first Netflix comedy special will be called Heavy Lifting because of all of the emotional and mental lifting I have had to do for the insecure men around me. I was dating a guy, we weren't even that serious, but I kept looking him in the face and being like, you don't like me. Like, you don't I don't know how to break this to you, but like I don't know why you keep inviting me over to your home because you do not enjoy my company. And it was during the pandemic. I was unemployed, I was lonely, I was touch starved, and I was broke. So if someone was going to pay for dinner and buy me drinks, but not like me, I guess I was willing to make the sacrifice. He would just be like, I don't understand why you think that, blah, 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 blah. And I was like, because if you honestly took a look at me and all my tarot cards and all of the rocks that I keep in this home and all of the woo woo and all of the progressive, like believing that Black Lives Matter and that gay marriage is an institution that should be forever in this country and whatnot, and you compared it to all of the rhetoric that your family has fed you for the last 30 years that you truly want to say that you don't believe in, but you are more than comfortable in telling me that you can use the R word that we made as a derogatory term for people with mental cognitive disabilities because you were in the army and that's how the army be, then there's truly such a huge gap in what you think you believe because you know that it's more socially acceptable in our group to believe that and what you're actually comfortable with in your life. And he was just flabbergasted. He's like, I don't understand why you don't think that I would like you. And I was like, oh no, please know that I know that I'm likable. Like, this is you dropping the ball on actually liking me.
Yeah. And so again, like that goes back to like self-awareness. Like, people are just operating on autopilot. he's an example of like how he's not actually reflecting on why he feels the way he feels or why he believes what he believes, right? It's like not, it's like they just kind of show up and they do and they say and they act and they behave in these ways that they feel like they're just like, that's just how I am, that's just how I'm programmed, that's just what I believe. And they're not actually like questioning themselves, questioning those beliefs, challenging those things to get a deeper understanding of themselves so that they can be more honest with everybody else.
And I think that one of the things that insecure people have mastered is the ability to just truly be passive in whatever is going on in their life. So it's like, if this is our relationship and you've told me that gay people matter, then by God, today I will choose to believe that because I don't know anything about myself. And if I knew anything about myself, I don't even think I would like it. So why don't I just tell you? Why don't you just tell me what I believe? And I used to be that person too, where it's like, how would you like me to behave today at the Chili's restaurant? And I will do it. And should get my Oscar award winning speech ready.
Yes, my first husband used to tell me that my beliefs were like a fart in the wind because I that's how I was too. I was so like malleable.
So, what do we do to help deprogram all of the things that we've been taught about divorce and marriage?
You have to ask yourself what you believe and why. Where does that come from? Is that just, do you believe something just because that's what your parents taught you when you were growing up? Or is this something that you really believe, right? And it's like you have to face the parts of yourself that you don't want to look at. You have to be okay with not liking some of the things that you find when you really look at yourself, because that's what empowers you to make changes. That's what empowers you to go easier on yourself. Like forgive yourself for the mistakes that you made. Let go of perfection. Just accept yourself for how you are and remind yourself that that's okay. Like however you are is okay, is enough.
It's going to get you there. It's going to, and I think that that is something that I don't think we do a great job in our American education system in actually preparing those children as to like what it means to be an adult. When I was a kid, I feel like there was four jobs. You could be a nurse or a doctor, you could be a fireman, a policeman, or a teacher. And that was it.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then you just picked one. And then you have like your parents telling you, oh, Natalie, you want to be a veterinarian. You're not good at science. And it's like, and then that's it. You're not good at science. That is the baseline. There's not, we can get you better at science. There's not, maybe this is a different way that you can feel like a veterinarian, but not be a veterinarian because you don't have the skills. It's just like, you're not good at it. Move on. And that's how I ended up teaching.
Oh. Oh no.
We have two traditions on the tail end of To All the Men I've Tolerated Before, where we kind of impart a lesson onto the listeners and then we leave them with a positive manifestation that we hope for the collective energy in general. If you had to tag up all of your experience between the two divorces, the coaching, and all of it, what is the needle point on a pillow lesson that you would put in everyone's home?
That being alone doesn't mean lonely. I think that that was always such a huge thing for me. Was I was just had this fear of being alone because to me that meant something was wrong with me, right? Or like I was just I felt bad about it. And that's just not the case. Being alone does not mean you're lonely. You can be alone and stand on your own 2 feet and still create a beautiful, fulfilling, healthy life. And in fact, that is what you should do, even if you do want to eventually wind up in a relationship, because that is going to completely change the way you're choosing your partners.
Yeah, and the alone doesn't mean lonely is something that I just like tell myself every night at 3 a.m. in the morning. It's like, it's fine. You're not lonely. You actually like this house. You like having control of your Netflix, and like this cat is pretty great. Um, I think there's so much to be said about spinster culture and like how you don't want to be a hag or a nag or a crone and you don't want to be that old lady with a million cats that probably like pushed me away from getting my first cat, and it's all just bullshit.
Yeah, it
And
is.
I think and it's all just like tools to keep women subservient and obedient and in these systems that don't actually serve them.
Yeah, it's fear. They're just projecting that fear onto us.
Yeah. I think my like needle point on the pillow lesson would be if you feel like you're doing more than you should in the relationship, you are. I think so often whenever we think, I think I'm getting the raw deal in this, we convince ourselves, no, he bought me flowers yesterday. And he even lets me get the ice cream that I like in the freezer or whatever. But if you're honestly in the quiet moments with yourself going, I think I have the raw deal in this, you do.
Yeah, like it's about getting really honest with yourself. And then hopefully you're in a relationship with someone who you can have a conversation about that with and you can find some kind of way to shift things around so that you feel a little differently. That was the ultimate scenario.
100%. What is something that you would like to offer up to the collective energy and manifest that we start getting better at or get right in the future?
I would say forgiving ourselves, self acceptance, self love. I mean, we talk about, you hear that like self love, but it's like really, truly just being okay with who you are and all of the times that you fuck up.
Yeah. I think there's such a shame in like, for one thing, I don't think we truly ever get anything like completely so wrong. We've completely wiped out our foundation of everything. It's like, oh, I really sucked at that. But did you?
Yeah.
And what does that mean to suck at something?
Yeah, that's
Like,
such a blanket statement. And like when people talk about failure, like I failed or I failed in my marriage, it's like I really believe that you only fail at something if you learned absolutely nothing. You just learned absolutely nothing from that. And you're just going to go do the same thing all over again. And that is like never the case, right? I mean, obviously, if you're talking about I have to take a test and there's a grade, like I either pass or I fail the test. Okay, but I'm talking like in life, like if you learned something, if you grew somehow, if you're walking away with even a little bit more wisdom than you had before, you didn't fail.
yeah. I think my manifestation at the end of the day would be that I'm going to more commitment ceremonies, weddings, or what have you, and feeling like I myself can like root for that relationship and be like, yes, these two people came to this altar, this space, this meadow, and they are truly ready to build this life together. Not that my opinion is the end all be all, but like how many of us have just like sat through a wedding and we're like, okay, this is what we're doing today.
Yeah, there's been several a wedding where I was like, "Oh, this isn't gonna be good."
Yeah,
This
thank
isn't
goodness for the
going.
free cake. Leah, this has been a wonderful, cathartic, healing. Like the work that you are doing is really going to help people just stop ending up in these settling positions where they're like, oh, this is what my day is going to be. And you can apply all of those skills to so many things, like your relationships, your relationship with your family, your job, anything can be boiled down to, am I settling for less than I deserve? And am I working harder than the people who are supposed to be supporting me?
Yes, absolutely.
Thank you so much for being a guest today. Please let Team Tolerator know all of the places that they can find you.
Yeah, so you can just go to my website, mindfullyready.com. That's mindfullyready.com. Everything is there. You can join my private support group of women who are recovering from or going through a divorce. There's a free empowerment guide and training video to help you gain acceptance, build your self esteem, and gain clarity on what you want next. You can also always hop on a consultation with me. I've got an online course, and there's all kinds of stuff on there for you.
And use those resources. Use them. Use your support system. And Team Tolerator, in order to be part of this team, you got to engage in the team. So make sure you're following us on Instagram on Men I've Tolerated Pod or my personal one, Natalie K124. That is the best way to find all of our projects and what we're doing. And remember, tolerators, you don't have to smile through anything you're tolerating, including a lackluster relationship that you wake up to every day, sighing about and going, but what if I was on Match.com meeting new people? Smiles are for joy.